Okay, so this is my presentation on how the unique features of deep sea creatures allow them to survive. When I say deep, I'm talking generally 3,000 metres and below, but quite a few of my 9 creatures that I've included are above 3,000 metres. Some of them are definitely not deep sea, but they have spiked my interest in my research, so I have added them in because I think they're awesome. I'm going to be using my notes because my memory's like a sieve and hopefully I don't get sidetracked. This clip should take 20 minutes, but I've tried this and it ended up 2 hours long. Oh no. So I'm trying to refine and talk quickly. Yeah. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the blobfish. Blobfish is recognised as one of the world's ugliest fish, but in the top 2 pictures, those are blobfish. The second one underneath, that's a seesaw, and I'll get to that in a minute. Blobfish live around Tasmania, Australia, generally Australasia. They live at depths of 600 to 1,200 metres in pressures between 60 and 120 times surface water pressure, pascals. And on top of that, they have the blobfish is recognised as blob because when it comes to surface, it goes into a form of a blob shape. But the picture on the right, that is what a blobfish looks naturally in its natural environment at deep sea pressures and deep sea depth. The intense pressure of the water around its body ensures it's like the purpose of skin for us humans. It keeps it all together in like a big sack, but the pressure just condenses everything into one zone, one area, and just pushes everything together really like tightly packedly. So when the pressure's not there, they turn into a blob. The next thing about a blobfish is its use of gelatinous skin. This is the same for seesaw, which is the picture underneath there. Many fish, deep sea fish, use gelatinous skin. This is instead of what is known as a swim bladder. So a swim bladder it's like rough and fine tuning between swim bladder and gelatinous skin. Swim bladder allows buoyancy at a more varying, a higher range of depths, but because this form of blobfish is in actually a really small range in depth in the water, so therefore it doesn't require massive amount of range in buoyancy, therefore doesn't require swim bladder at all. Secondly, if a swim bladder malfunctions, it can cause the blobfish to come to the surface. This becomes fatal for the fish. As you can see, it looks horrendous. It probably feels horrendous as well because it's like being hit by a bus, all the organs everywhere. It's just, it probably feels ghastly. On top of that, the gelatinous skin is made of a composition of proteins, carbs and fats. Fats is 57% in a blobfish. This allows for more buoyancy. This is similar to when female and male divers go diving. The female diver, for humans have to wear extra weights on their weight belt because they normally have a higher proportion of fat in their body. Therefore, the weights allow them to become more dense, become heavier, so they can sink better. This gelatinous skin is the fine-tuning of buoyancy for these fish because instead of having a swim bladder, this gelatinous skin allows it to change depths within centimetres even, and this is controlled by hormones. This blobfish has a really small brain. Its main function is keeping hormone balances through, especially for the gelatinous skin, because obviously pressure is what is part of its key survival. This fish, it requires pressure, therefore gelatinous skin is needed for its buoyancy to keep at high pressures in the water. And on top of that, these fish do not have a swim bladder because at these pressures it's like having a small balloon in their body. At these pressures, a swim bladder would burst. Swim bladder is generally for fish at less deep waters. So yeah, that's a blobfish. Okay, so the vampire squid, this creature lives for 8 years, has 8 tentacles, 2 arms. They're not really arms, but they are more like fin sort of things. Allows them to adjust the angle where they're looking, where they are really. Can grow up to 28 centimeters. It's not huge, size, but it's not a predator. This is generally what is the prey for most. It lives between 300 and 3,000 meters in depth, and has its name. Its name is taken from the cape it has. So it is webbed tentacles. It's seen as a cape, and its eyes can turn from red and blue. So you get vampire squid from that. Generally, this is not a predator, too small. It has no ink sac. It has no teeth, but its teeth is more like what we'd see as a molar. It's really just for not hunting. It's just there to help aid mechanical digestion and stuff. Doesn't do that much. It's not a predator, really not. Okay, so also when this vampire squid feels threatened, it can cover itself in its cape and hide. But we'll get to that bit. When it hides, it uses the power of bioluminescence to basically, it can use it to not be seen. It can turn it on and off, control it. This is its superpower, basically. A few other creatures have this. It's fairly common within this family. It's the actually last one of its family, but within octopus, squid, other squids, but this is not a squid, by the way. This is not it's closer to the ray family, but it's the last one of its family left because it's the prey, basically. It has nothing, it has no offensive weapons or anything. It's massively defensive. Last one of its family left, and it's not classified as a squid. There's lots of sources saying that it isn't. Most sources say it isn't a squid. Yeah, so not actually a squid. It's part of the Vampyromorphodia. Okay, due to the bioluminescence, the squid has light-producing organs called photophores. These photophores is what actually allows the squid to be turned on, turned off. On top of that, the vampire squid have the largest eyes in comparison to body size and body mass, really body size. And depending on the light, the eyes look like they're red or blue coloured. This is controlled. It's naturally blue when it doesn't feel threatened, which is odd because these photos, something had to come pretty close to it, so therefore I feel they would have been threatened when the photos were taken, yet their eyes are still blue. Anyway, when they feel threatened, their eyes are actually red. This is quite common in a lot of places in throughout animal kingdoms. So when we see danger signs along roads for us, they're red to attract attention and stuff, to scare away anything. Anyway, their eyes are not those white dots. They're those blue dots, but those white dots on the body, they're really small. I'll try and show you. Those white dots, they are called photoreceptors. So they will they control the photophores across the body, but they're able to pick up the photophores from other species, other ones that have photoreceptors, transmitters, photophores. This allows for a unique form of communication, but it's also just there to allow the vampire squid to know when something's nearby and stuff, and allows the vampire squid to make sure that anything nearby knows that it's not there, or it is there. Generally not there because it's not a predator, it's prey. It doesn't eat anything bigger than a jellyfish. When I mean jellyfish, I mean I travelled 6 hours in a car to pick this jellyfish up from the beach. This size. It's dead, but yeah, there you go. Okay, so I'll go back to the jellyfish. Yeah, it doesn't eat anything bigger than the jellyfish. This jellyfish, there's actually 2 in there, but I'll get to the jellyfish again some other time. There's pink things with its guts, which I'll get there. The grey stuff is actually sand, because I felt that I'm gonna cremate it with sand. Yeah. I'm going to take it back to the beach and bury it. Anyway, yeah, so that's the photoreceptors and stuff. The squid does have control of these light organs, and can modulate the intensity of the photophores to create complex patterns that can be used to disorientate predators and attract prey. Yeah, so it's all controlled from the photoreceptors. Like I said, it's like the nucleus of cell, but organ system in this case. These are the photoreceptors and photophores are individually each an organ. The photophores altogether an organ. Yeah. So then I was talking about how they don't have an ink sac. I think I mentioned that. They don't have an ink sac. What they do have instead is a thick mucus that they use. It's another form of disorientation, but it's not as effective as the ink sac, because the ink sac, the ink they use, can it stops transmitting between photophores. So that's a really good use of disorientation. But obviously this vampire squid doesn't have it. It uses mucus. Mucus is basically as effective as not much. It's like having a shoe in a corridor and you just have to make that extra effort to make sure you don't stand on it and break your ankle or something. Yeah, so that is a vampire squid. Okay, so the next one is an anglerfish. This is quite a well-known fish. This is what's seen as really spooky in the alien world of the deep sea. Anyway, it lives up to 30 years. This is for the female fish. If in the picture you'll see that the female fish and the male fish for the anglerfish is very different in size, but I'll get to that in a bit. It lives between 1,000 metres and 3,300 metres and can weigh up to 32 kilograms and have a size of 3.3 feet long. But on that, there's most anglerfish within the 1 foot size. There's not many between 1 foot and 3 feet, and then you have a few between 3 feet and 3.3 feet. This is really uncommon to find 3.3 feet anglerfish. So then you go back to it, and researchers found eventually that they thought originally there were two different species of anglerfish. Then more research went into it and they found out there were 200 different species of anglerfish. Anyway, I'm looking at anglerfish in general because they all have similar properties that I'm looking at. The female fat anglerfish also has a jaw so big that if you compare it to a human, it's like our smile dropping down to our ribs. It's that big. Anyway, yeah, so this light, or this rod, the fishing rod, as lots of people call it, fishing rod is only in a female anglerfish, as you can tell if you can see a picture. It is an organ called the esker. That's the thing that's the bulgy thing. It's to attract prey, and it uses the form of bioluminescence again. It's made from luminous flesh, and this anglerfish can swallow prey twice the size whole, and if you see the teeth, they curve inwards, so when the prey realises what it's actually swimming into, because it can't see the body, it's the luminescent effect is only so big so that the rest of the fish cannot be seen, only the bait, the fishing rod, the esker is what the organ is called. And so the fish is swimming into the mouth, blah blah blah, and it realises, oh no, I've swum into the mouth of an anglerfish. It tries to swim backwards, it can't. It gets stuck on the teeth, so it just makes it worse. It's bad. The source of luminescence in the esker is made from symbiotic bacteria. This is the relationship between the bacteria around the esker and the fish itself. Its symbiotic relationship allows the bacteria to get the nutrients it wants from the fish, and the fish to get the luminescence from the bacteria. The esker is got pores all the way around it, so it allows for easy in and out exchange. On top of that, enclosed in the cup-shaped reflecting container containing the crystals. So what I'm saying by that is, within this transmission, the esker has guanine, one of the 4 components of DNA and RNA, but majority it's on this DNA and genetic sort of level, the anglerfish becomes dependent on this symbiotic relationship, and after time the esker sort of withers, and it causes a higher concentration of bioluminescence bacteria around the esker. It requires higher concentration of bacteria around the esker for the esker to survive and sustain itself in the water it's living in. So basically, the use of guanine, I'm never good at the pronunciation, but that's how I pronounce it. So the use of guanine allows for the esker to maintain its shape even when it's withering. If it doesn't maintain its shape, the luminescence factor, it's not as bright. Obviously there's not much bright in the water because it's so deep, but the relationship has many components, many factors that are necessary for this, for both the luminescence bacteria and the anglerfish to survive. The female anglerfish obviously is much bigger, and the male anglerfish is really small. So the female anglerfish can hold up to 6 males attached, and the female can survive on itself, but by its own. So it swims, and the male anglerfish are lone swimmers. So they swim within the sea by themselves. They find a female anglerfish, and they bite onto their stomach so that they can have access to their bloodstream, because obviously that's where the nutrients are, etc. And so the female does the hunting, female does the work, surprise surprise, and the male becomes what is known as a parasitic mate. With a young male angler encounters a female, he latches onto her with sharp teeth. Yeah, they both have sharp teeth. Obviously, they're different for different purposes. To add to that, over time, which is like years and years, the male actually fuses to the body of the female, but still remains different. They're not the same. They're not one organism, because everything eventually fuses, but they're not the same organism, because actually the testes are the only thing that doesn't become absorbed into the female. But then again, no one's really sure how they mate. But because the bloodstream is the main thing that connects them, many people believe that they mate, but the two gametes fuse through due to the blood, as that's what connects them. It's hard to tell because obviously it's internal, it all happens internally, and they live so deep in the water that it's just really uncommon. But she does not have that ability to shake them off or anything. Once they're there, you know. It is a constant parasite, I'm sure. But this is an anglerfish. Okay, this barreleye fish is better known as a spook fish. This is really, really creepy fish. But what we'd see on that picture as eyes are not the eyes, they're false eyes. They're just there to make it seem like they're looking one way, but they're not looking that way. They're looking up generally. Those two green blobs, those are the eyes. They can look in 4 different directions at the same time, but generally it's majority up. Then if I bring in this picture, this is the normal fish eye structure on the left, and the other eye is what we'd say is a barreleye fish. Obviously it has different looks. It looks really odd, looks really peculiar, but basically in this it shows that the barreleye fish has better angles, doesn't require peripheral vision because it has what am I trying to say? Better range of sights, different angles. Okay, on top of that, the barreleye fish, its jelly-like head, it protects it from stinging cells, which basically is the main thing that harms a barreleye fish in the sea. The stinging cells are called cnidocytes, spelled cnidocytes, and contain a structure called nematocytes. I can never pronounce this. Nematocytes is a coiled thread-like stinger, which is these sort of structures. They're sort of really small on the microscopic scale, but not quite actually. The stinging cells that threaten the barreleye's eyes can be found on the tentacles of siphonophores or marine invertebrates from which the barreleye fish steal their food. Yeah, so it's a kind of a rivalry, isn't it? So that is what really harms a barreleye fish. This causes the stinger to shoot out what is triggered in the action. So venom is released, is what I'm trying to say here. What I've written down is the venom is released once they're stung. This happens really, really quickly, 1/1,000,000th of a second. The cause of the uncomfort for the barreleye fish and the venom is a protein called porin, which is found in the venom and hides in what I see, well, in the cnidocyte. It's in the thread, it coils round in, it's within what we'd see as the skin, the jelly-like scales, or in the cnidocytes. Anyway, goes out a millionth of a second. It's within the thread-like, hair-like structure, and there you go, venom, the porin, and it hurts. It's similar in what we find in jellyfish. Yeah, I had to pick this up really weirdly because I was worried, even though it's dead, that it would hurt. Anyway, what's really odd about a barreleye fish is their mouth is really small. It gives the illusion that, well, to us, that their what they eat is really selective, really small amounts, maybe really small items, but their digestive system's really long and really complicated, so it shows maybe a variety, but it doesn't really match up, which is really odd. Yeah, so on the other hand, their digestive systems are really large. In fact, the stomachs of the cause of the uncomfort for the barreleye fish and the venom is a protein called porin, which is found in the venom and hides in what I see, well, in the cnidocyte. It's in the thread, it coils round in, it's within what we'd see as the skin, the jelly-like scales, or in the cnidocytes. Anyway, goes out a millionth of a second. It's within the thread-like, hair-like structure, and there you go, venom, the porin, and it hurts. It's similar in what we find in jellyfish. Yeah, I had to pick this up really weirdly because I was worried, even though it's dead, that it would hurt. Anyway, what's really odd about a barreleye fish is their mouth is really small. It gives the illusion that, well, to us, that their what they eat is really selective, really small amounts, maybe really small items, but their digestive system's really long and really complicated, so it shows maybe a variety, but it doesn't really match up, which is really odd. but their large fins allow them to be able to stay in. They move in constant motion, but they hover. So they're not actually going anywhere. Well, they can choose to not go anywhere because they go in like a figure of 8 pattern. Gain more control over what they're eating, basically.
Macropenis is a small, dark fish with large fins, a tiny mouth, and a remarkable pair of eyes. The 2 green spheres in these video shots are the lenses of its tubular eyes. Behind the eyes is a set of large scales. The eyes are enclosed within a transparent shield, sort of like the canopy of a jet fighter. In front of the eyes are 2 dark capsules containing the fish's olfactory organs. Typically, Macropenis sits quietly in the water, using its big fins for stability, while it scans the water above for food. When it spots food, it can rotate its eyes to look forward, to include its mouth in the field of view. We speculate that Macropena steals food from siphonophores, elongate animals with tentacles that capture prey that swims into them. And we think that Macropena swims into the tentacles and steals the food from the siphonophores.
Okay, so the next one is elephantfish, or also known as ghost shark. Native to the Pacific regions, found in South Pacific, they prefer continental shelves with temperate waters. They're also found along the coast of Australia and Tasmania and New Zealand. They're saltwater, and they live not deep. These are not a deep sea. But they're really cool. So that's why I've included them. They live between from the surface to 600 meters in depth, and they're not a shark or fish. They are a cartilaginous fish related to sharks-ish, but they're not really sharks. Related to sharks and rays. They're a type of chimera. I always think I'm pronouncing it right, but it turns out I'm not. But this is how I pronounce it: CHIMAERA. Anyway, yeah. So what I've written is basically they live in saltwater, but they live in 2 different areas of saltwater through migration. So they start off in really salty areas between the first few months of the year, and so in March they change and they migrate to less salty climate, but the change in the salt concentration of water is really high. So basically, they have what we'd see as a rectal gland, but basically what this fish is able to do is their osmoregulation, salt secreting, kidney-like function, but it's really not a kidney, it's not a rectal gland, but this is the closest thing to what it seems like it is. They have a really superior filtration, digestive and filtrating system, so they can secrete salt really well, and their osmoregulation is incredible for these fish. Okay, so the elephantfish were compared to the chimera. Research study done by Journal of Experimental Biology. Yeah, this harmed them, which is really sad because I think they're really cute. Anyway, each elephantfish has approximately 10 tube structures were located in the wall of the postvalvular intestine. So in a chimera there wasn't 10, there were like 8, so it wasn't really, it was showing that the elephantfish, their gut was more advanced, because the chimera doesn't migrate in March, it stays in the same place, but they're like really closely related, so it was easy to compare them. Anyway, each tube structure was composed of salt secreting components, and was in like a circulatory epithelium, and then it was tested between the two species, and it turns out that the elephantfish was able to secrete all these ions really fast, much faster than Chimera. And okay, so their image of their results was this. So basically, A, B, and C are the elephantfish. D and E is southern Chimera, but this image shows how the elephantfish has a more adapted, what we'd see as rectal gland. I was going to add in for the elephantfish a little video clip, but it won't work on this, so I won't be able to do that. But my next creature is the Christmas tree worm. This is also another creature that is not what is naturally considered as deep sea. Okay, so I'm going to read off this page from what I've written about the Christmas tree worm. But this Christmas tree worm isn't... I've added this in not because of what its features does to help itself survive, but what it does to help the entire ecosystem survive. The Christmas tree worm acts as a shock absorbent. They protect the coral from primary risk factors and physical impact from the force of the water or their other organisms, and use seed dispersal in the water. What seed dispersal? They like lots of other sea creatures, they float the eggs and in the water, so it's like seed dispersal but in the water for when they are reproducing. But then on top of that, this is used to increase the population of Christmas tree worm, and they land on the coral, and then what happens is they grow to an average length of 1.5 inches and live for 3 years. But each worm has two brightly coloured crowns on their body, and it's composed of radioles, like feather-like tentacles, from the worm's central spine, which is just it's like what we see as a vertebrate column, vertebrae, and these creatures, basically the larvae float around in weeks, but then goes through metamorphosis and creates a carbonate tube from the spine, and then basically the carbonate tube, the worm eats the calcium and turns it into calcium carbonate and secretes it into the coral, which allows the coral to strengthen and increase in size. Therefore, the coral reef that it lives in, it will not deteriorate. It increases the life of the entire ecosystem and strengthens it. On top of that, I'll just show a picture in a minute. But this also helps the fish, because if a predator is sensed, then they have a way to escape. So the carbonate tube, it has a small amount of hollow inside, so therefore it has the ability to escape into the carbonate tube. But the Christmas tree worm also has the ability to know when a predator is nearby, even when a shadow is not cast over them or when it's not touched. This is it's like being able to see in the dark sort of stuff. Yeah, but I'll just show a little photo. Scrolling. Christmas tree worm, it's really beautiful, really cool. Okay, the Christmas tree worm. Yeah, that is a Christmas tree worm. Okay, so next one, I've got 3 more, including this one to go. But this one is leopard sea cucumber. It's not one of my favourite creatures, but it looks pretty cool. It looks like it's got a cool hairdo. But I'll just quickly pull up a photo, and there we go. There you go. It looks rather wacky. I kind of like it. Looks rather cool. This grows to be 2 feet long and can live between 5 and 10 years. It doesn't have a huge impact, but one of its survival techniques is that when threatened, some sea cucumbers can discharge sticky threads to ensnare their enemies. So this is what it is. So when a predator comes towards it, the sticky stuff, this is the white hair-like stuff, it's like eating through jelly, sort of custard. It slows them down, makes it harder. It slightly disorientates them, I guess. But yeah, they violently contract their muscles and squeeze some of their internal organs out of their anus. Sea cucumber can easily regenerate its organs, by the way, so don't worry, don't feel sad for the sea cucumber, it's fine. The threads that the sea cucumber use to trap their enemies are called can't pronounce this either, but I'm trying. Cuvierian tubulars. Yeah. Another sea cucumber that is transparent, one that reminds me of a glass frog, is this one. I'll just pull up a photo. It's the transparent jellyfish-like thing. This is when I bought my jellyfish. This is what it's for. This is one. No, well, it's not a jellyfish. It is a sea cucumber. It always it catches jellyfish to me. What it does is I've added this within my sea cucumber side to this because it is a sea cucumber, but basically it's transparent and moves so slowly because it moves so slowly, it doesn't attract the attention of predators. It's obviously, you can see it's sort of translucent, sort of. You can see its guts inside. But this one lives in the Gulf of Mexico at 2,750 meters deep, and it moves 2 centimeters per minute. I think it's basically slower than a slug. Jellyfish that I travelled 6 hours to collect. This pink stuff, so if you can see under here, there, you can see it sort of wavers. I don't know if it's easy to see, but I'm really trying to show it. I'm really proud of my jellyfish. But it's dead, there are 2 of them. And anyway, from what I can see its veins, like this jellyfish here. You can see what you'd see as veins, but you can also see its guts. And this one, the one that I picked up, travels fast. Lots of sources are not sure, they're really contradicting each other. But the source that I found that says it's meant to look like debris, it's more of like camouflage, sort of. I'll be honest, I don't think it's great camouflage, but I'm not a sea cucumber. So yeah, futurism.com/sea cucumbers is where they say that. They seem to have a lot of other sources, other writers, so I'm pretty sure they seem accurate. Let's hope so. Okay, this I'm not going to pronounce because I'll try because it's its name. It's Discodermia dissoluta. Actually, no, that's correct. I did pronounce that correctly. Anyway, this is this I've added because of what it can do for us medically. This organism I've added because of its unique properties to help the survival of us humans. I know I was obviously this is not deep sea, but this is fairly deep sea. It lives in eastern, southern and southwestern Caribbean. And anyway, this is really interesting to bio and organic chemists because it produces a polyketides in a sponge. It's basically they are a large group of secondary metabolites. It's basically it's the way to describe it would be immunosuppressants. Anyway, the immunosuppressants and they kill cancer. So this is why it's really good for human medical science. Anyway, this Discodermia dissoluta produces disgermolide, which is the polyketides that produces the immunosuppressants that we can use for killing cancer. They also have compounds with anti-inflammatory and antiviral properties. anti-tumour activity against human lung and breast cancer cells. The chemical prevents cells from dividing and spreading, so reproducing. Other creatures that are really good for medical science is a horseshoe crab, because of its ability of clotting, so we can use this for to help blood clotting. Okay, so last one is Sixgill shark, also known as blunt-nosed Sixgill shark. They live up to 80 years and are cartilaginous fish and live at 6,000 meters, which is incredibly deep. They're related to the dogfish and Greenland shark, which in the news recently, the Greenland shark, they found one that was like 100 years old, Greenland shark, and this is very similar because the way they respire. They have a very sedentary and solitary lifestyle and can go months without food. This is because they respire really slowly, their metabolism is incredibly low, and they can swim at the bottom of the sea on just above the sand, and they make very small movements. They move with the water and the current, so they go with them, therefore they don't have to make the extra effort to swim. On top of that, the Sixgill shark, obviously normally sharks have 5 gills on each side, can conserve energy and only requires 1 meal. When I mean 1 meal, it's like a good portion of dead whale carcass at the bottom of the ocean every 12 months. That is a Sixgill shark, and those are my 9 unique creatures from the deep dark depths of the sea, and some from the coral reefs. But yeah, this is my presentation on deep sea creatures and their unique features to survive.